Greetings and welcome back to 303. We are in Senior English A. Your hymnals are open to page 51. We are in the middle of conversations about the great Anglo-Saxon poem Beowulf. And our project now is to work with part 2 of Beowulf. So let's write that down at level 1. Part 2 of Beowulf. Now I'm going to actually begin, this is maybe weird to one or two of you, but I'm going to begin at actually level 3A, relationship to other texts. Many, many years ago, there was a film that became quite famous called Friday the 13th. And this film became then kind of like the beginning of a bunch of movies to follow of its kind, what we sometimes refer to as slasher films. The film is about, of course, some bad guy running around trying to kill people and blah, blah, blah. And at the very end of the film, you think that the bad guy has been killed, everything is over, and the woman who has done the, kind of gotten away and everything, and she's in a little boat out on the water, and the music goes really soft, and everybody in the film house or the theater is looking for their keys, and it's over, and then all of a sudden, from the other side of the boat out of the water will come, right? And then everyone screams, and then all the credits roll. Now, this is a form of movie making that actually has its origins way back with the Beowulf epic. Think of it this way. The Beowulf epic was first an oral tale. Let's write this down at 2b. First an oral tale. That means it's told before it's ever written down. And if you grew up around a great storyteller, somebody who could sit around the campfire and could tell a story and could make you laugh or make you scared. A good storyteller knows how to tell the first part of a story and then the second part of the story, right? Now, the first part of our story is, of course, the great epic hero Beowulf fighting against the monster Grendel. He defeats the monster, remember, by holding on to the monster's arm, and Grendel is afraid and pulls away, leaving the arm there, right? Goes away back to his lair, his home, and there he dies. That's the end of the story, we're told, and Beowulf takes the arm and hangs it up in the rafters of Heorot Hall as a trophy showing he destroyed the monster. Way to go, Beowulf. And you can kind of imagine that the people who would be hearing the story told would say, well, that's the end of the story. Where are my car keys? That's a joke. There are no cars in Anglo-Saxon England, right? Where are my car keys? In other words, it's over. But wait, the storyteller has more to tell. And this is what we call Beowulf Part 2. Beowulf has killed Grendel, but Grendel has a mother. Okay? Grendel has a mother who is not going to be pleased that her boy came home dead. Okay? And so we're going to have the second part of the Beowulf epic, and this will be the revenge element. Grendel's ma is going to have some problems with the fact that Grendel came back dead. Okay? I'm with you now on page 51. Just to remind, we are working with a line-by-line reading of our text. Our goal here is to improve our reading by following along as we go. I made the observation in an earlier lecture, I'll make it again, just to remind. When you were in kindergarten, you remember that you could sit in front of the teacher, and the teacher would read a story, and you loved that story. Yes? Right? We could do that project when we were very young. That is not our project here. Our project here is not to just listen to the instructor read the text. Rather, our project is to read the text with the instructor and to do the best job we can of understanding it as we go. Working again on multiple levels, starting at level 1, a summary level. And then level 2, themes, messages, as well as rhetorical techniques, literary devices. And then level 3, the relational level, relating to other texts. I've already mentioned Friday the 13th. And of course, relating to ourselves as well. I'm with you now on page 51. Now, just to be clear, you're not reading all of the Beowulf epic in our anthology. They're only going to give you principal passages. Primarily, they're going to give you the passages of action, as we said earlier. A lot of the speeches, the classic speeches of Beowulf, are actually, unfortunately, left out of our anthology. And when it skips a part, they're going to give us some italicized language, just like on page 51. right above the words, the heading, the monster's lair, we're going to get some basic information that's going to kind of bring us up to speed. Let's read it really quickly. Are you with me on page 51? Just read along. The Danes, that is to say the people of Hrothgar's kingdom, the Danes celebrate Beowulf's victory. That night, though, Grendel's mother kills Hrothgar's closest friend. His name is Aschir, and carries off as well her child's, Grendel's, claw, his arm. The next day, the horrified king tells Beowulf about the two monsters and their underwater lair. Okay, so let's go ahead and put it right now at level 1. The transition from level 1 to level 2, from part 1 to part 2 of the Beowulf poem, is in part 1, Grendel is killed. In part 2, at the beginning, Grendel's mother is going to come under cover of night. Now, she is out simply for revenge. She is not there, like Grendel, to kill lots of men. So she is simply going to come in and do two things for your notes. One, she's going to kill Hrothgar's most famous warrior. His name is Aschir. Two, she's going to grab the arm of her son, which has been hung up in the rafters as a trophy, and she's going to take it back to her lair, where, of course, we imagine Grendel's body is. Now, this lair is under the water, subterranean, right? In kind of like a cave. A lair is a place for hiding out, okay? And so we now will be reading on page 51, the monster's lair. Let's go ahead and read together. Watch the amazing poetic descriptions. For example, at 2b, not what the poet says, but how the poet says it. Notice how many really interesting adjectives, descriptive words, are going to be used in this passage to draw a picture in your mind of what it must look like, this really scary place where Grendel's ma lives. The monster's lair. I've heard that my people, peasants working in the fields, have seen a pair of such fiends. By the way, just for your notes, this is Hrothgar speaking, right? And he's telling Beowulf, I've heard that there actually was not one of these monsters, but two of these monsters, okay? In the fields, have seen a pair of such fiends wandering in the moors and marshes, giant monsters living in those desert lands. And they've said to my wise men that as well as they could see, one of the devils was a female creature. I'm at the top of page 52 now. One of the devils was a female creature. The other, they say, walked through the wilderness like a man, but mightier than any man. By the way, for those of you that are very interested in things like the Bigfoot type of controversy, is there such a thing as Bigfoot? This notion goes all the way back to the Anglo-Saxon times, where people say they saw this thing walking around. They weren't sure what it was, and Hrothgar says it's very possible maybe that in fact there is a second monster after all, Hrothgar says to Beowulf. By the way, for your notes, why Beowulf is not there the night that Grendel's ma shows up, the storyteller doesn't know. Of course, it works rather nicely, doesn't it? Why? Let's put it at 2b. What are we doing? Creating suspense, aren't we? Creating suspense. In other words, a good storyteller now has a second part of the story, right? It's going to be Grendel's mom now, okay? Okay, I'm with you back on page 52. The other, they say, walked through the wilderness like a man, but mightier than any man. They were frightened and they fled, hoping to find help in Heorot. They named the huge one Grendel. If he had a father, no one knew him, or whether there had been others before these two, hidden evil before hidden evil. They live in secret places, windy cliffs, wolf dens where water pours from the rocks, then runs underground, where mist steams like black clouds, and the groves of trees growing out over their lake are all covered with frozen spray and wind down snake-like roots that reach as far as the water and help keep it dark. Let's just pause for a moment and point out our storyteller is trying to draw a picture of a really scary place. We could ask this question at 3b. What is for you the scariest place you've ever been? That is to say, a place when you were there, it kind of freaked you out. What kind of place was that? Now, for the Anglo-Saxons, one of the scariest places are these moors. these swampy places where it's very dangerous to go, or going down in a cave. Caves have a tendency to be a place of great fear. Why? Not a lot of light. Scary things live down there. And notice you have here water as well as there, right? Now, we'll keep going. At night, that lake burns like a torch. No one knows its bottom. No wisdom reaches such depths. A deer hunted through the woods by packs of hounds, a stag with great horns, though driven through the forest from faraway places, prefers to die on those shores, refuses to save its life in that water. It isn't far, nor is it a pleasant spot. When the wind stirs in storms, waves splash toward the sky, as dark as the air, as black as the rain that the heavens weep. Our only help, again, lies with you. So let's pause here. Notice Hrothgar. Excuse me. Notice Hrothgar. He says, where Grendel comes from and Grendel's ma lives, very, very nasty place. We need your help a second time. Please come back and help us out one more time. Now, you can jot down really quickly at 2a. I'm sorry, at 3a. This sounds very similar to something you're all familiar with. If the movie makes a lot of money the first time, what do? We make a what? Sequel, don't we? We make a second movie, right? In other words, let's go back to the well and let's make another movie and let's see if they like it just as well. Jot down at 3a really quickly. What is your favorite sequel? What is your favorite show which the second movie was every bit as good as the first movie and maybe even better? Is there such a thing? A lot of people say, never. The first is always better than the second. Others will say, no, I'm familiar with a pretty good sequel or two that I really liked the second one. It's almost like the second one was actually better. Of course, those of us who enjoy video games, this is always the debate. Are updated versions better than the original? Often people who loved to play the original will argue the very first version is always the best version. See, hotly debated back and forth between gamers. Let's finish our passage. Notice, Grendel's mother is hidden in her terrible home in a place you've not seen. Seek it. Did you see this line? If you dare. Exclamation point. Save us once more, and again, twisted gold, heaped up ancient treasure, will reward you for the battle you win. Let's finish this passage by making two observations really quickly. One, notice that Hrothgar will say to Beowulf, I don't know. Did you notice it? Very subtle. I don't know if you're strong enough, if you're man enough, if you're courageous enough to go down there where Grendel's ma lives. I don't know. I don't know if you dare to do that. Now, can you imagine how Beowulf probably is going to respond to that? What do you mean if I'm not strong enough? How dare you? Right? Hrothgar, pretty smart. Number two, point out. Number two for your notes. Notice Hrothgar comes to Beowulf in the second one. In the first one, what? Beowulf came to what? Hrothgar. Remember? Beowulf shows up and says, hey, I want to help you out. In the second part, notice Hrothgar comes to Beowulf and says, I need your help. We need your help. This is bad news for us. But nobody wants to go down there under the ground where Grendel's ma lives. No one wants to do it. I don't even know if you're man enough to want to do it. Of course, this is sometimes referred to as reverse psychology. When you call into question a man's manhood, sometimes he'll do something just to prove he's courageous enough to do it. Well, obviously this is going to beg the question, again, why would Beowulf do this? Our motivations for action are part of the conversation we were having earlier. Why would Beowulf decide to do this? What does he gain by doing this? Of course, the easy answer is our G word, glory, right? Or fame, right? In other words, people will talk about him long after he's gone as being a warrior of tremendous courage. And let's write that word down at 2a. Obviously, this passage is designed to say heroes have the courage to do what normal people would never want to do. And Hrothgar says as much. Hrothgar's like, dude, I don't want to go down there where she lives. That's a horrifying place. The water is even on fire. That's how bad a place it is. Notice that it has the depictions almost of like hell in Dante's Inferno, in parts of Dante's Inferno, right? That scary, scary place where terrible things happen. And Beowulf is going to be very, very vulnerable. He's going to be capable of being attacked and hurt. Beowulf will have to decide now, as we come back, whether in fact he will take up Hrothgar's challenge or no.